I've been a missing persons investigator for 13 years. Today, I opened a case file with my photo and a report that I vanished 8 days ago. The case file landed on my desk at 9:23 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, routine as coffee and bad fluorescent lighting. I just finished logging evidence from a runaway teen case when my partner Gina Halstead dropped a manila folder in front of me. "Fresh one," she said. "Adult male, missing 8 days, no known enemies, stable job, probably voluntary departure, but the wife's insistent something's wrong." I opened it without thinking, the way I'd opened thousands of case files over 13 years with the Denver Missing Persons Unit. Then I saw the photograph clipped to the intake form. It was me. Not similar, not close. My exact face staring back from a driver's license photo I recognized because I'd stood in that same DMV 3 years ago, annoyed at the wait time and the photographer's insistence I remove my glasses for the shot. My hands went numb. The folder slipped slightly before I caught it. The intake form listed my full name, Adrian Okoye, my actual home address on Bellevue Street, my date of birth, my height and weight, and distinguishing marks. A small scar above my right eyebrow from a childhood bike accident. Subject was last seen leaving for work on the morning of November 3rd, the report stated. Failed to return home that evening. No contact with family, friends, or employer since disappearance. Vehicle located in employee parking lot at Denver Police Department, District 4. Keys, wallet, and cell phone missing. Today was November 11th. According to this report, I'd been missing for 8 days, except I'd been at work every single one of those days. I looked up at Gina. She was already back at her desk, typing up notes from another case, completely unaware she'd just handed me documentation of my own disappearance. "Gina," I said, and my voice came out steadier than I expected. "Where did this case come from? Who filed the report?" She glanced over. "Wife filed it. Came in yesterday afternoon, pretty distraught. Said her husband's a detective with MPU, works missing persons, and he just vanished. Department took it seriously given his position. Why?" I held up the photograph. "This is me. This is my driver's license photo, my address, my information. Someone filed a missing persons report on me." Gina's expression went from confused to concerned. "That's not funny, Adrian. I'm not joking. Look at this." I brought the file to her desk, laid it out in front of her. She studied the photo, then looked at me, then back at the photo. Her face went pale. "What the hell? That's definitely you. But you've been here all week. I've seen you every day." She flipped through the intake forms, the witness statements, the timeline documentation. "Who filed this? Who's claiming to be your wife?" I pointed to the name on the report. "Simone Okoye. That's my actual wife. Or ex-wife, technically. We separated 4 months ago, but the divorce isn't finalized yet." Gina was already pulling up the digital case management system. "This doesn't make sense. If she filed it yesterday, someone should have flagged it immediately. You're in the system as an active employee. Any report using your details should have triggered an alert." She typed rapidly, pulling up the file. Her expression darkened. "Adrian, according to this, you've been on emergency leave since November 4th, the day after you supposedly went missing." The floor felt unstable beneath my feet. "I haven't taken any leave. I've been here every day. You've seen me. We worked the Ramirez case together on Friday. We had lunch in the break room on Monday." Gina nodded slowly, but something in her eyes had changed. A wariness I'd never seen directed at me before. "I remember that. But Adrian, this says you requested emergency leave through the department HR portal. It's logged with your employee ID, your password credentials, approved by Lieutenant Boswell." She turned the screen so I could see. There it was. A leave request form submitted November 4th at 6:14 a.m., requesting indefinite emergency leave for personal family crisis. My name, my employee number, my digital signature. I pulled out my phone and opened my work email. Scrolled back through the past 8 days. I had messages, responses, case updates, all the normal traffic of my job. But when I looked at Gina's screen, my official email account showed an out-of-office auto-reply active since November 4th. This is insane. Someone's accessing my accounts. Someone's impersonating me in the system. I showed her my phone. "Look, I have all my work emails right here. I've been communicating with the team all week." Gina looked at my phone screen, and I watched her face shift through confusion to something worse. Suspicion. "Adrian, those emails aren't in the server logs. According to the system, your last sent message was November 3rd at 5:42 p.m., confirming you'd finished the Watson file the next morning. Nothing after that." I opened my sent folder, showed her the message I'd sent her just yesterday about the Ramirez case. "This is from yesterday morning, 9:15 a.m. You responded, remember? You said you'd follow up with the family." Gina pulled up her email, found the message I was referencing. Her hand started shaking slightly. "Adrian, this message shows it came from your personal email address, not your work account, and I never responded to it. At least I don't have any record of responding." She scrolled through her sent messages. Nothing. I checked my phone again. The response I clearly remembered receiving from her wasn't there. The message I'd sent her from my work email showed as sent from my personal Gmail account instead. "What the hell is happening?" I said quietly. Lieutenant David Boswell appeared in the doorway of the unit, his expression grim. He was mid-50s, 28 years on the force, ran our unit with efficiency and genuine care for both the missing and the investigators trying to find them. "Detective Okoye, I need you to come with me to my office. Now." It wasn't a request. Gina and I exchanged a glance. I followed Boswell to his office, my mind racing through possibilities. Identity theft, system hacking, some kind of elaborate prank. But pranks didn't involve falsified police documents. Pranks didn't trigger emergency leave requests and missing persons reports. Boswell closed the door behind us and gestured to a chair. "Sit down, Adrian." He didn't sit himself, just stood behind his desk, hands clasped, looking like he was choosing his words carefully. "I received a very strange call from Simone this morning. Your wife." "Ex-wife," I corrected automatically. "We're separated. Divorce pending." Boswell nodded. "She called because she filed a missing persons report on you yesterday. Said you disappeared on November 3rd, and she hasn't heard from you since. She's terrified something happened to you. Now, I told her that was impossible because I've seen you here at work as recently as 2 days ago. Except when I checked the logs, you've been on emergency leave for over a week." He paused. "So either our system is compromised, or something very strange is going on. Which is it?" I pulled out my phone. "Lieutenant, I've been here every single day. I worked the Ramirez case, the Watson follow-up. I was in the staff meeting on Friday morning when we discussed the new database protocols. You were there. You saw me." Boswell's expression didn't change. "Adrian, I haven't seen you since November 3rd when you left work at the end of your shift. The staff meeting you're referencing, I led that meeting. You weren't present. In fact, Gina mentioned you were dealing with a family emergency and would be out for a while. That was impossible. I remembered that meeting. Remembered sitting in the conference room, drinking terrible coffee from the machine that always burned it, listening to IT explain the new case management interface. Lieutenant, that's not possible. I was there. I remember the entire meeting. The new search parameters for the database, the discussion about the integration with the FBI's NamUs system, the complaint about the interface being too complicated." Boswell sat down slowly. "Those topics were discussed. But Adrian, you learned about them through the meeting minutes that were emailed to the team afterward. You weren't physically present." I wanted to argue, wanted to pull up proof. But what proof did I have? My memories were clear, but memories weren't evidence. The digital trail said I'd been gone. The official records said I'd requested leave. Even my partner, who I'd worked alongside every day, was looking at me with growing uncertainty. "Sir, I think someone is impersonating me. Someone has access to my accounts, my credentials, my information. They filed this leave request. They're making it look like I disappeared." Boswell pulled out his own phone. "Then explain this." He showed me a photo. It was me, or someone who looked exactly like me, sitting in what appeared to be a hospital waiting room. The timestamp read, November 5th, 2:37 p.m. "Your wife sent me this. She said you'd been acting strange the week before you disappeared. Paranoid, secretive, not sleeping well. She took this photo at an urgent care clinic because you'd been complaining of headaches and she was worried you were having a medical crisis." I stared at the photo. The man in it was wearing clothes I owned, a gray quarter-zip pullover I'd bought last spring. He had my face, my posture, my watch on his left wrist. But I had never been to that urgent care clinic. I'd never had headaches. I'd never complained to Simone about anything because I hadn't spoken to my wife in over a month, not since our last argument about the divorce settlement. "That's not me," I said. "I've never been to that clinic. I don't know where that photo was taken, but it wasn't me in it." Boswell studied my face. "Adrian, I'm going to be direct with you. I've known you for 6 years. You're one of the best investigators in this unit. You're thorough, rational, and you don't jump to conspiracy theories. So when you tell me someone is impersonating you, I want to believe you. But right now, the evidence suggests you might be experiencing some kind of dissociative episode. Memory gaps, confusion about your own timeline, believing you were present for events you weren't at. That's serious. That needs medical attention." The words hit like ice water. He thought I was mentally ill, thought I was having some kind of breakdown, and couldn't distinguish my own memories from reality. "Lieutenant, I'm not having a breakdown. I'm not confused. Someone is doing this deliberately. Someone is impersonating me, accessing my accounts, convincing people they're me. And now they've made me look like the crazy one by filing a missing persons report while I'm standing right here." Boswell's expression was sympathetic but firm. "Then help me understand. Who would do this? Who has the capability to access police databases, falsify leave requests, and convince your wife they're you? What's the motive?" I didn't have an answer. Identity theft usually had clear motives: financial gain, revenge, covering another crime. But this was different. This was someone stealing my life while simultaneously reporting me as missing, creating a paper trail that made me look unstable while they took my place. "I don't know yet," I admitted. "But I'm going to find out. This is what I do. I find missing people. I investigate discrepancies and inconsistencies, and I follow evidence. Let me investigate this." Boswell shook his head. "You can't investigate your own case. You know that. It's a conflict of interest, and it compromises the integrity of any evidence you might find. I'm going to assign this to another investigator, and I'm going to require you to undergo a psychological evaluation before you return to active duty. He said it gently, but it was still a gut punch. You're suspending me? I'm putting you on administrative leave pending evaluation. It's protocol when an officer shows signs of potential mental health crisis. It's for your safety and the integrity of the unit. I wanted to argue, wanted to refuse, but I knew the protocols as well as he did, knew that fighting this would only make me look more unstable. Fine, I'll do the evaluation, but I'm telling you, someone is setting me up. And when I prove it, I'm going to find out who and why. I left Boswell's office and walked back to my desk in a fog. Gina was watching me with concerned eyes. Adrian, are you okay? What did Boswell say? I'm on administrative leave. He thinks I'm having a breakdown. I started gathering my personal items from my desk. Badge, coffee mug, the framed photo of my niece. Gina, I need you to believe me. I've been here all week, every day. Whatever the system says, whatever the records show, I was here. You saw me. Gina hesitated. I want to believe you. But Adrian, I've been going through my own records, my calendar, my notes, my case logs, and there are gaps. Days where I thought you were here, but I don't have any concrete evidence of it. No emails in the server, no joint case notes, nothing documenting we worked together. It's like my memory says one thing and the records say another. And that scares me. She looked genuinely frightened. What if we're both experiencing something? Some kind of shared delusion or memory contamination? The thought was terrifying, but I couldn't accept it. My memories were too clear, too detailed. I remembered conversations, specific moments, things that couldn't be fabricated by a confused mind. I'm not crazy, I said quietly, and neither are you. Someone is manipulating the records, making it look like I wasn't here. Trust yourself, Gina. Trust what you remember seeing. I left the station before anyone could stop me. Sat in my car in the parking lot and tried to think clearly. Someone had filed a missing persons report on me while I continued living my life. Someone had accessed my work accounts and requested emergency leave. Someone had sent my wife a photo of themselves at a medical clinic, pretending to be me showing signs of illness or instability. This was calculated, sophisticated, and it was working. The entire department now thought I was either missing or mentally unstable. Either way, I was effectively neutralized. Couldn't investigate, couldn't work, couldn't even trust my own memories according to everyone around me. I needed evidence. Concrete, undeniable proof that I existed exactly where I claimed to be. I pulled out my phone and started checking everything. My bank account first, transactions from the past 8 days, coffee shop purchases, gas station fill-ups, grocery store trips. All places I actually remembered going. But when I looked at the locations, my stomach dropped. The coffee shop charge from Monday morning showed a location in Boulder, 30 miles from Denver. I'd gotten coffee at the shop 3 blocks from the station. The gas station from Saturday was in Colorado Springs, over an hour south. I'd filled up at the station near my apartment. The grocery store transaction from Sunday showed a store I'd never been to in a neighborhood I didn't recognize. Someone was using my credit cards, making purchases in my name at locations I'd never visited, building a trail that placed me far from where I actually was. I called my bank's fraud department, waited through the automated menu hell until I got a human being. This is Adrian Okoye. I need to report fraudulent charges on my account. Someone's been using my card without authorization. The representative, a woman named Keisha Douglas, pulled up my account. I'm showing several transactions over the past week. Can you specify which ones are fraudulent? I listed them. The Boulder coffee shop, the Colorado Springs gas station, the unfamiliar grocery store. These aren't my transactions. I didn't make these purchases. Someone has my card information and they're using it. Keisha was silent for a moment. Mr. Okoye, I'm looking at our security flags. These transactions were all made with chip and PIN verification. That requires physical possession of the card and knowledge of your PIN. Do you still have your card in your possession? I checked my wallet. My credit card was there, exactly where it should be. Yes, I have my card, but these charges aren't mine. Sir, it's possible you're experiencing memory issues. All of these transactions show proper authorization. The card was physically present and the correct PIN was entered. There's no indication of fraud from our security systems. Another dead end. Another person suggesting I was confused, forgetful, unable to remember my own actions. I hung up and sat in the parking lot, trying to calm the panic rising in my chest. Someone had figured out how to use my credit card, complete with PIN verification, while I still had the physical card. Someone had accessed my work systems with my credentials. Someone had convinced my wife they were me and that I was ill. This wasn't simple identity theft. This was something more complex. I needed to see Simone, needed to understand what she'd seen, what had convinced her to file a missing persons report. We hadn't spoken in weeks. The separation had been bitter, and the divorce proceedings even worse, but she was a key witness to whatever was happening. I drove to the house we'd shared until 4 months ago. It was a modest 2-bedroom in Englewood, the kind of starter home young couples buy when they're optimistic about the future. I'd moved out in July, been living in a cramped apartment ever since, still paying half the mortgage while we waited for the lawyers to sort everything out. Simone's car was in the driveway, a silver Mazda she'd bought last year. I parked on the street and walked to the front door. My key still worked, but it felt wrong to use it. I knocked instead. Waited. The door opened and Simone stood there, her expression cycling through confusion to shock to something that looked like terror. "Adrian?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "What are you doing here? When did you?" She grabbed my arm, pulled me inside, slammed the door behind us. Her hands were shaking. "Are you okay? Where have you been? I've been terrified. I thought something happened to you." "Simone, I don't understand. What are you talking about? I've been at work. I've been living at my apartment. I haven't been anywhere unusual." She stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. "Adrian, you disappeared 8 days ago. You left for work on November 3rd and never came home. You stopped answering your phone, stopped responding to messages. I called your office and they said you'd requested emergency leave. I called your friends and no one had heard from you. I filed a missing persons report because I thought you were dead." I pulled out my phone. "I've been answering my phone. I get your calls. Well, I used to get your calls, but we haven't talked in over a month. Not since the fight about the house." Simone's face was white. "Adrian, I've called you 15 times in the past week, sent you 20 messages. You never responded to a single one." She pulled out her own phone, showed me the call log, my number over and over, all marked as unanswered, all with voicemails left. "I've been begging you to just let me know you're alive, begging you to come home so we can talk. I thought maybe you were having a breakdown, thought maybe the stress of the divorce pushed you over the edge." I checked my phone. No missed calls from Simone, no voicemails, no messages. My call log showed the last contact with her was October 8th, the day we'd argued about dividing our assets. "Simone, I don't have any of these calls in my phone. According to my records, you haven't tried to contact me at all." I showed her my screen. She looked at it, then at me, and I saw the exact moment her fear shifted to something else, doubt. "Adrian, this doesn't make sense. Why would my phone show all these attempts to reach you if they never went through? Why would your phone show nothing?" Her voice got quieter. "Unless you deleted them. Unless you're trying to make me think I'm crazy." "I'm not trying to make you crazy. I'm trying to figure out what's happening. Simone, someone filed a missing persons report using my information. Someone's been accessing my accounts, making charges on my credit card in places I've never been. Someone is impersonating me." She backed up a step. "Or you're having paranoid delusions. Adrian, you were acting strange the week before you disappeared. Anxious, secretive, not sleeping. I took you to the urgent care because you said you were having headaches and seeing things that weren't there. The doctor recommended you see a psychiatrist. Do you remember any of this?" "No, because it didn't happen." "Simone, I haven't seen you in over a month. I haven't been to any urgent care clinic. I haven't complained about headaches or hallucinations. That wasn't me." She pulled up a photo on her phone, the same one Boswell had shown me. Me in the urgent care waiting room, looking exhausted and unwell. "This is from November 5th. I took it while we were waiting to see the doctor. You'd been up for 3 days straight, said you couldn't sleep because you kept seeing someone watching you. Someone who looked exactly like you." The detail hit me like a physical blow. Someone who looked exactly like me. What else did I say? About this person who looked like me? Simone's expression shifted. "You said you'd seen them at work, that they were watching you, following you, trying to replace you. You sounded paranoid, Adrian. Delusional. That's why I insisted you see a doctor." My hands went cold. Someone who looked like me. Watching me. Trying to replace me. What if I hadn't been paranoid? What if there really was someone who looked like me, and they'd been surveilling me, learning my patterns, preparing to take my place? "Simone, what happened after the urgent care visit? Where did I go?" "You went home with me, slept for almost 12 hours. Then the next morning you left for work and I never saw you again." I checked the dates. November 5th was the urgent care visit. November 6th was supposedly my last day before requesting emergency leave. But I had clear memories of being at work November 6th, 7th, 8th, and every day since. Working cases, talking to colleagues, living my normal life. Either my memories were completely fabricated, which was terrifying, or someone had been living parallel to me, showing up to my wife as a distressed, ill version of myself while I continued my actual life completely unaware. Did anyone else see me during that week? Friends, family, neighbors? Simone thought about it. "Your brother called. On November 4th, I think. You talked to him for a while. Seemed upset after. And Mrs. Kowalski next door, she mentioned seeing you leave early one morning. Said you looked tired." I called my brother immediately. Daniel Okoye, 2 years younger than me, worked as a civil engineer in Fort Collins. We talked maybe once a month, usually about family obligations or sports. He answered on the third ring. "Adrian? Everything okay?" "Danny, did you call me on November 4th? Did we talk?" "Yeah, you called me actually. Late at night, like 11 or something. You sounded weird, man. Paranoid. Said you thought someone was following you, watching your house. I told you to call the cops if you felt unsafe, but you said they wouldn't believe you. Then you just hung up. I tried calling back, but you didn't answer. I figured you were drunk or something and I'd check in later, but then I got busy with work and forgot." He paused. "Why? What's going on?" "I didn't call you that night. I have no memory of that conversation, but someone using my phone did." Daniel was quiet. "Adrian, that's concerning. You should see a doctor. Memory gaps like that can be serious." I wanted to scream. Everyone kept telling me to see a doctor, kept suggesting I was sick or confused or delusional. But I knew my own mind, knew my own life. "Danny, I'm fine, but I think someone is impersonating me, using my information, my phone, my identity. I need to figure out who and why." Jesus. Identity theft? More than that. They're living parts of my life while I'm living other parts, creating a timeline that makes me look mentally ill so no one believes me when I say it's not me. I could hear the skepticism in my brother's voice. "That sounds pretty elaborate. What would be the point? Why would someone go to that much trouble?" "Good question. What was the end game? If someone wanted to steal my identity for financial gain, they'd drain my accounts and disappear. If they wanted to frame me for something, they'd plant evidence of a crime. But this was different. This felt like they were trying to erase me, replace me entirely." I spent the next 3 days trying to build a case. I pulled security footage from the coffee shop where I actually bought coffee every morning. The barista remembered me, confirmed I'd been coming in regularly, but when we reviewed the footage from the past week, I wasn't there. The timestamps showed other customers, the normal morning rush, but no sign of me. "That's impossible," I told the manager, a guy named Amit Patel, who'd made my cappuccinos for 2 years. "I was here Monday morning. You made my drink. We talked about the Broncos game." Amit looked uncomfortable. "Sir, I make a lot of drinks. I might have you confused with another customer, but the footage doesn't lie. If you're not on camera, you weren't here." I checked my apartment building's security cameras. The building manager, Leslie Joe, pulled up the logs reluctantly. "Mr. Okoye, I'm not supposed to show these to residents without a warrant or police request. I am the police, or I was until 3 days ago. Please, I just need to verify my own comings and goings. The footage showed me entering and leaving at reasonable times. Work hours, evening returns, normal patterns. Except the person in the footage moved wrong, held themselves slightly different. I watched myself, or the person who looked like me, unlock my apartment door on November 7th around 6:30 p.m. They glanced at the camera briefly, and something about the expression was off. Too controlled, too aware of being watched. "Can you give me copies of this footage?" I asked Leslie. She hesitated. "I really shouldn't without proper authorization." "Please, it's important." She burned the footage to a drive, handed it over with obvious reluctance. "If anyone asks, I didn't give you this." I took the drive home and watched every frame. The person who looked like me had accessed my apartment multiple times over the past 8 days. They knew the door code, knew exactly how to move through the building without drawing attention. But there were small tells. They checked the mailbox more frequently than I would. Took the stairs instead of the elevator, which I never did because of a bad knee from a college basketball injury. Little things that wouldn't mean anything to a stranger, but screamed wrong to someone who actually lived that life. I set up my laptop and started building a timeline. 2 columns, one for where I actually was, and one for where the record said I was. The discrepancies were stark. While I was working the Ramirez case at the station, my credit card was being used in Boulder. While I was sleeping in my apartment, my phone was making calls from my wife's house. While I was sitting in my car in a parking lot trying to make sense of this, security footage showed me entering my apartment building. 2 places at once. Impossible unless there were 2 of me. I called the mandatory psychological evaluation number Lieutenant Boswell had given me. Dr. Rachel Finch, forensic psychologist, 22 years experience with law enforcement mental health. Her office was in a medical building downtown, the kind of place that tried to look professional but mostly just looked sad. Beige walls, generic art, magazines from 2 years ago in the waiting room. Dr. Finch was in her 50s, with sharp eyes and a manner that suggested she'd heard every excuse and delusion law enforcement officers could produce. "Detective Okoye, thank you for coming in. I understand you've been experiencing some concerning symptoms." "I'm not experiencing symptoms. I'm being impersonated. There's a difference." She made a note on her pad. "Tell me what's been happening from your perspective." I walked her through everything. The case file, the emergency leave request, the credit card charges, the security footage. Laid out my timeline with dates and times and specific evidence. She listened without interrupting, her expression neutral. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "That's a very detailed narrative. You've clearly thought through the logistics. But Adrian, I need to ask you some difficult questions. Is it possible you're experiencing dissociative fugue states? Periods where you're acting and functioning but have no memory of your actions afterward?" "No. I have continuous memories of the past 8 days. There are no gaps." "What about false memories? Is it possible you believe you were at work, believe you were living your normal life, but those memories are actually fabricated by your mind to fill in gaps you're not consciously aware of?" I wanted to argue, but that was exactly what Gina had suggested, what Simone implied, what everyone kept circling back to, the idea that I was sick and didn't realize it. Doctor, if I'm experiencing false memories, how do I prove what's real? How do I distinguish between actual events and fabrications? Doctor, Finch leaned forward. That's the challenge with this kind of condition. The memories feel completely real. Your mind creates detailed, convincing narratives to explain time you can't account for. It's a defense mechanism, a way to maintain coherent sense of self when your memory is compromised. But there's physical evidence. The security footage showing someone who looks like me accessing my apartment. The credit card charges in places I didn't go. The phone calls I didn't make. That's not false memory. That's documentary proof someone is impersonating me. Or it's documentary proof you were in those places and made those calls, and your mind has constructed an alternative narrative because accepting the reality is too psychologically threatening. She said it gently, but it still felt like a trap. Every piece of evidence I presented could be reinterpreted as proof of my own mental illness rather than proof of an impersonator. What would it take to convince you I'm telling the truth? I asked. Dr. Finch considered this. Bring me something that can't be explained by dissociative episodes or false memories. Bring me evidence of two distinct individuals existing simultaneously in a way that's verifiable by independent third parties. Not footage you could have appeared in yourself. Not charges you could have made yourself. Something that proves beyond doubt there are two of you. I left her office feeling defeated. How do you prove you're not crazy when every attempt to prove your sanity can be dismissed as further evidence of your illness? I needed something undeniable, something that would force everyone to see the truth. I drove to the police station where I'd worked for 6 years, parked in the visitor lot instead of the employee lot because I no longer had access privileges, watched officers come and go, people I'd worked alongside for years, none of them noticing me sitting in my car like a stalker. Then I saw him, saw myself, walking out of the building at 4:15 p.m., carrying my work bag, wearing clothes from my closet. He moved like me, had my walk, my posture. But when he turned his head to check for traffic before crossing to the parking lot, I saw his profile, and something was wrong. The angle of his jaw was too sharp. The way he carried his shoulders was too straight. Small details that wouldn't register unless you knew exactly how Adrian Okoye actually moved through the world. He got into a car, a dark blue Nissan sedan I didn't recognize, started the engine and pulled out of the lot. I followed, keeping 2 cars back, using every surveillance technique I'd learned over 13 years of investigative work. He drove to my apartment building, used the door code, which he shouldn't have known, went inside. I waited 30 minutes, then went to the building myself, used my own code to get in, took the stairs, slowly, quietly. My apartment was on the 3rd floor, number 312. The door was closed. I pressed my ear against it and heard movement inside. Someone was in my home. I pulled out my phone, started recording video, and knocked on my own door. Footsteps approached. The door opened, and I was looking at myself. Exactly myself. Same face, same build, same shocked expression I would have worn if I opened my door to find myself standing in the hallway. We stared at each other for a frozen moment. Then he smiled, and it was the wrongest thing I'd ever seen. My smile on a face that wasn't quite mine, arranged in an expression I'd never made. "Hello, Adrian," he said in my voice. "I've been wondering when you'd figure it out." I held up my phone, making sure the camera captured both of us. "Who are you? What are you?" The not me tilted his head. "I'm you, the better version. The one who actually shows up for work, maintains relationships, doesn't let everything fall apart through neglect and avoidance." He stepped back, gestured for me to enter my own apartment. "Come in. We should talk." Every instinct screamed not to go inside, not to give him the home advantage. But I needed answers, and I needed footage of both of us together, proof that there were two. I stepped inside, keeping my phone raised, recording everything. The apartment looked like mine, but cleaner. The dishes were done, the laundry put away, the clutter organized, all the things I'd been meaning to do but never got around to. "You've been living here," I said. "Living my life. Why?" The not me sat down on my couch like he owned it. "Because you weren't. You went through the motions, but you weren't really present. At work, you solved cases, but you didn't care about the people. In your marriage, you were physically there, but emotionally absent. You created a life-shaped hole where Adrian Okoye should have been, and I filled it. That doesn't answer the question. What are you? Are you a twin I didn't know about? A clone? Some kind of sophisticated impersonator?" He laughed, and the sound was almost right, but not quite. "I'm what happens when someone stops living their own life. I'm the replacement that slides into the space you abandoned. You can call me a doppelganger if it makes you feel better. A fetch. A Vardoger. Humans have had names for us for centuries." My blood went cold. "You're saying you're not human." "I'm saying I'm what fills the void when humans check out of their own existence. You stopped being fully Adrian Okoye about a year ago. The marriage fell apart, the job became routine, you started just going through motions instead of actually living. That created a gap. I filled it. And honestly, I'm doing a better job than you did." He leaned forward. "Your wife thinks I'm recovering from a breakdown but getting better. Your lieutenant thinks I'm dedicated enough to work through personal crisis. Your colleagues actually like me because I listen when they talk instead of just waiting for them to stop. I'm the version of you people actually want to be around. I wanted to argue but couldn't. Everything he was saying was true. I had been checked out, had been going through motions. The divorce had gutted me, and I'd responded by becoming numb, distant, barely present in my own life. So what happens now? You just take over completely, and I disappear? That was the plan, the not me said calmly. I establish myself as the real Adrian Okoye, living your life better than you did. You become the missing person, the case file that never gets solved. Eventually, evidence of your mental breakdown surfaces, people assume you wandered off during a psychotic episode, and your life continues without you. I become you, and you become a tragic footnote. He smiled again. But you had to go and start investigating, had to use those detective skills to uncover what was happening. Now we have a problem. The problem is you're not me. You're some kind of entity wearing my face, and I have footage of both of us together, proof that there are two. Once I show this to people, your whole scheme falls apart. The not me stood up. You think they'll believe you? They already think you're having a breakdown. You show them footage of you talking to yourself, and they'll just see more evidence of psychosis, schizophrenia, dissociative identity disorder, paranoid delusions. The only thing you're proving is that you need psychiatric intervention. He moved closer, and I backed toward the door. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to turn off that phone, delete the footage, and walk away. Start over somewhere far from here. I'll keep being Adrian Okoye, live your life properly, and everyone will be better off. Or you can fight me, and I'll make sure everyone knows you're violently unstable. Make sure you end up institutionalized for your own safety. I held my ground. I'm not walking away. This is my life, my identity. You don't get to take it. I already took it. I've been you for 8 days and no one noticed the difference. In fact, they prefer me. That should tell you something about how little you were actually living this life. He reached for my phone. I pulled back. He grabbed my wrist, his grip stronger than it should have been, and twisted. The phone fell, hit the floor hard. I heard the crack of the screen. The not me bent to pick it up, and I tackled him. We went down hard, grappling on the floor of my apartment. He fought like he knew exactly how I'd move because he'd studied every aspect of me. But I had the advantage of desperation. I managed to grab the phone, scramble to my feet, and run for the door. Made it to the hallway before he caught me again, slammed me against the wall hard enough to knock the wind from my lungs. You're making this harder than it needs to be, he said, and his voice had changed, deeper, with harmonics that didn't sound human. I offered you a peaceful exit. Now I'm going to have to make you disappear the hard way. A door opened down the hallway. Mrs. Kaufman from 316, an elderly woman who'd lived in the building for 30 years. She looked at us, at what appeared to be one man violently assaulting himself, and her expression went from confused to frightened. I'm calling the police, she said, backing into her apartment. The not me released me immediately, his expression shifting to concern. Mrs. Kaufman, it's okay. He's my brother. We're just having a family dispute. Nothing to worry about. But she'd already slammed her door. I heard the locks engaging. The not me turned to me, and his face was calm again, controlled. This is your last chance. Walk away, or I will destroy you so completely you'll wish you had. I ran, burst out of the building and into the parking lot, got in my car and drove, hands shaking, the adrenaline making everything feel hyper-real. My phone screen was cracked but still functional. The video was still recording, 38 minutes of footage. I pulled into a parking garage 3 blocks away and finally stopped the recording. Watched it back. The footage showed me entering the apartment, showed me talking to empty air, showed me apparently grappling with nothing, throwing myself against walls. The not me wasn't visible on camera. Everything he'd said, every physical interaction, it all appeared to be me alone having a violent episode with myself. He'd known the camera wouldn't capture him, had probably planned for me to record our interaction because the footage would only damn me further. I wanted to scream. Every piece of evidence I gathered made me look more unstable. Every attempt to prove the truth just reinforced the narrative that I was mentally ill. The entity wearing my face had set the perfect trap. I called the only person I thought might believe me, Gina Halstead, my partner for 3 years, who'd seen me work cases and knew how my mind functioned. Gina, I need your help. I need you to believe me even though I know how this sounds. Adrian, where are you? Lieutenant said you left your psych eval early. People are worried. I found him, the person impersonating me. I went to my apartment and he was there, living in my home. We talked, we fought. I have it on video, but the camera doesn't show him. It just shows me looking crazy. But he's real, Gina. He's some kind of entity that fills empty spaces in people's lives. Silence on the other end. Then, Adrian, please go to the hospital. Please get help. I care about you and I'm scared you're going to hurt yourself. I'm not going to hurt myself. I'm trying to save myself from something that's stolen my identity and is systematically erasing me. Gina, you said yourself that your memory showed we worked together even though the records didn't. What if your memory was right? What if there's something altering the records, making it look like I wasn't there? Or what if we both need help? Her voice was gentle. What if this is affecting both of us? Some kind of shared psychosis or carbon monoxide exposure or something environmental that's making us confused. Another dead end. Another person convinced I needed psychiatric intervention rather than belief. I hung up and sat in my car trying to think. The entity had access to my home, my accounts, my identity. It could impersonate me perfectly, except for small details that only I would notice. And it didn't show up on camera, which meant any evidence I gathered would only show me appearing to talk to myself or fight with nothing. It had systematically destroyed my credibility, my support network, my employment. All I had left was the investigation itself. The one thing I knew how to do better than anything else. I pulled up missing persons databases and started searching for similar cases. People who'd been reported missing while claiming they were still present. People who'd said they were being impersonated or replaced. Cases that had been dismissed as mental illness or delusions. I found 12 in Colorado alone over the past 5 years, all marked as resolved through psychiatric intervention or voluntary missing persons who never wanted to be found. But the patterns were there. People claiming someone was living their life. Family members saying the missing person seemed different before they vanished. Reports of seeing the person in 2 places simultaneously that were dismissed as mistaken identity. I cross-referenced the cases with outcomes. 3 had been found dead, apparent suicides. 5 had been institutionalized for mental health treatment. 4 had simply vanished completely, never found. Not one had been taken seriously. Not one had resulted in any investigation of impersonation or identity theft beyond standard fraud protocols. I was looking at a pattern of entity replacements going back years, all hidden behind mental health diagnoses and missing person statistics. I needed someone who would understand this wasn't psychosis, someone who'd investigated similar cases, or at least wouldn't immediately dismiss the possibility. I searched for paranormal investigators, doppelganger researchers, anyone who studied phenomena that conventional law enforcement wouldn't touch. Found a name, Dr. Marcus Irving, professor of folklore and mythology at University of Colorado Boulder, published extensively on doppelganger legends and tulpa manifestations. It was a long shot, but I was out of conventional options. Dr. Irving's office hours were listed on the university website. I drove to Boulder, found the Humanities Building, and knocked on his door at exactly 2 p.m. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with wild hair and the intensity of someone who'd spent their career studying things most people dismissed as fiction. Dr. Irving? I'm Adrian Okoye. I need to talk to you about doppelgangers. Real ones, not legends. He studied me for a moment. Come in. Close the door. His office was chaos. Books stacked everywhere, papers covering every surface, a whiteboard filled with diagrams and notes. You're not the first person to come to me with this, he said, gesturing to a chair. I get maybe 3 or 4 people a year claiming they've encountered their double. Most are experiencing psychological breaks, but some, a very small sum, are telling the truth. I pulled out my phone, showed him the cracked screen footage of me alone in my apartment. I recorded myself talking to it, fighting with it. It doesn't show up on camera, but it's real. It's been living my life, accessing my accounts, convincing people it's me. Dr. Irving watched the footage carefully. Describe it. When you looked at it, what did you see? Myself. Exactly myself. Same face, same build. But small things were wrong. The way it held itself, the way it smiled, like it was copying me from a study guide instead of actually being me. He nodded. That's consistent with the phenomenon. They're not perfect. They can't be. They're essentially parasitic entities that attach to human identities when those identities become weak or unstable, when someone stops fully inhabiting their own life. That's what it said, that I'd created a gap and it filled it. Dr. Irving pulled out a thick file. I've been documenting cases for 15 years. The entities vary. Some seem more aware than others. Some are better at mimicking. But they all follow similar patterns. They target people experiencing major life transitions, depression, dissociation. People who've become disconnected from their own existence. The entity moves in gradually, takes over small aspects of life, then larger ones, until the original person is pushed out entirely. He showed me photographs, documents, case files. Most of the time, the original person ends up institutionalized or dead. The entity becomes them and lives their life. No one ever knows the difference except maybe people who were very close to the original, and even they usually convince themselves they're imagining the changes. How do I stop it? How do I prove it's not me? Dr. Irving was quiet. That's the problem. They're designed to be unprovable. They exist in the liminal space between identity and appearance. They can't be captured on film or recording devices. They don't leave DNA evidence that's different from the original. The only proof is direct observation by someone who knows you well enough to spot the differences. My wife saw the differences. She said I was acting strange before I supposedly disappeared, but she interpreted it as mental illness. Exactly. That's how they protect themselves. Any observation of their wrongness gets reinterpreted through conventional frameworks. Medical, psychological, rational explanations that dismiss the supernatural reality. I felt hope fading. So I'm doomed. It takes my life, and I just disappear. Not necessarily, Dr. Irving said. There's one thing they can't replicate. Memory. Deep, specific memories that only the original person would have. If you can find someone who knew you very well and get them to test your doppelganger with detailed questions about shared experiences, The entity won't be able to answer correctly. It's learned the surface of your life, but it doesn't have access to your actual memories. That gave me an idea. My brother, Daniel, we grew up together. He'd know things about our childhood that no one else would. Then that's your witness. Get him to confront the doppelganger. Get him to ask questions only you would know, and record the failure. That might be enough to start breaking the entity's hold. I called Daniel from Dr. Irving's office. Danny, I need a favor. I need you to come to Denver and meet the person who's been impersonating me. Don't tell him I asked you to come. Just show up and ask him questions about our childhood. Specific things only I would remember. Daniel was skeptical. Adrian, this sounds like some kind of test. Are you trying to prove you don't have memory problems by having me quiz someone else? Just trust me. Please. This is important. He agreed reluctantly. Said he could drive down that evening. Dr. Irving lent me recording equipment that he claimed was specifically designed to capture paranormal phenomena. I don't know if it'll show the entity visually, he said, but it should at least record audio and maybe energy signatures that conventional equipment misses. I set up at a coffee shop across from the police station and waited. At 5:15 p.m., the not me emerged from the building. He walked to the Nissan, and I followed again, this time to the house I'd shared with Simone. He let himself in with a key. I watched from the street as lights came on inside. 20 minutes later, Daniel's truck pulled up. My brother got out, walked to the door, knocked. The not me answered. I watched them talk through the window, body language casual. They were both smiling. After a few minutes, they sat down in the living room. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I could see Daniel ask questions, see the not me respond. It went on for 30 minutes. Then they stood, shook hands, hugged. Daniel left looking satisfied, like he'd just had a good conversation with his brother. I intercepted him in the driveway. Danny, how did it go? Did you ask him the questions? Daniel looked at me with concern. Adrian, you're here too? What's going on? I thought you were inside. That's not me inside. That's the impersonator. Did you ask him about our childhood? Yeah, I asked about when we built that treehouse in the backyard, about the time we snuck out to that concert, about Mom's reaction when we crashed her car. He remembered everything perfectly. My heart sank. He couldn't have. Those are my memories. Private memories that no one else would know the details of. Daniel's expression shifted to worry. Adrian. He knew everything. Even stuff I barely remembered. He mentioned the exact model of car we crashed, what song was playing on the radio, what excuse we tried to use. Details I'd forgotten but recognized as true when he said them. Impossible. Unless the entity had access to more than surface observations. Unless it could somehow extract real memories instead of just mimicking behavior. I checked Dr. Irving's recording equipment. The session had captured audio of Daniel's voice asking questions and the not me's voice responding. But when I played it back, the not me's answers were subtly wrong. The car model was close but not quite right. The song was from the right year but not the actual song that had been playing. The excuse was plausible but not what we'd actually said. Small errors that Daniel, hearing them in real time, had unconsciously corrected in his own mind. His brain had filled in the right details because the wrong ones were close enough. But listening to the recording with full attention, the mistakes were obvious. Danny, listen to this. Listen to his answers carefully. I played back the recording. Daniel listened, his expression changing as he caught the discrepancies. That's not quite right. The car was a Subaru Legacy, not a Camry. The song was Smells Like Teen Spirit, not Come As You Are. We said we were at the library, not a study group. He looked at me with growing alarm. Why would he get those details wrong? Because he's not me. He's something else. Something that learned about my life, but doesn't have my actual memories. I showed Daniel the footage of me in my apartment, explained everything. The entity, the missing persons report, the systematic takeover of my identity. I need you to believe me. I need someone who knows me well enough to tell the difference. Daniel was silent for a long time. This is insane. But those details he got wrong, you're right. They're close, but not accurate. And I convinced myself they were right because I wanted to believe my brother was okay. He looked at the house. What do? We document everything. We get more people who know me to test him. We build a case that shows a pattern of errors that the real Adrian Okoye would never make. And we force someone in authority to take this seriously. Over the next 2 days, Daniel and I contacted everyone who knew me well. My ex-wife, my colleagues, my old college roommate, my niece. We had each of them meet with the not me separately and ask specific questions about shared experiences. Each time, the entity got close, but made small errors. Details that the questioner initially accepted, but that didn't quite match reality when examined closely. We compiled the recordings, 15 conversations, 43 specific factual errors, mistakes about dates, names, places, events, each one small enough to overlook in the moment, but collectively painting a picture of someone who'd studied Adrian Okoye's life without living it. I brought the evidence to Lieutenant Boswell, laid out all the recordings, all the documented discrepancies. Lieutenant, this proves there's an impersonator. Someone who knows enough about my life to be convincing, but doesn't have my actual memories. Someone who's been accessing my accounts, my home, my workplace. Boswell listened to several recordings. Heard the not me claim the wrong name for my mother, place my college graduation in the wrong year, describe my wedding venue incorrectly. This is disturbing, he admitted. But Adrian, it could also be evidence that you're having memory problems, that you're the one with the wrong information and this other person, whoever they are, is filling in details you've forgotten. Then test me. Test both of us. Ask questions only the real Adrian Okoye would know and see who gets them right. Boswell agreed. He set up a formal interview, called in both me and the not me simultaneously. We sat across from each other in an interrogation room, the same room I'd used to interview witnesses for 13 years. The not me smiled at me, confident and calm. "This is pointless," he said. "You're just going to make yourself look worse." Boswell started asking questions. Basic biographical information, work history, case details. The not me answered smoothly, accurately. I answered the same way. Then Boswell shifted to more specific memories. "Describe the first missing persons case you ever worked." I described it in detail. 17-year-old girl, run away from an abusive home, found 3 days later staying with friends in Colorado Springs. The relief on her mother's face when we brought her back. The follow-up work with social services to address the abuse. The not me described a different case, different details, different outcome. Close to my real experience, but wrong. Boswell made notes. "Describe your wedding day." I described it. The venue in the mountains, the unseasonably cold weather, Simone's dress that she'd spent months choosing, the best man's speech that made everyone cry. The not me's version had the wrong venue, wrong weather, wrong details. More notes. The questions continued for an hour. The not me got approximately 60% of the answers right, close enough to be plausible, but 40% were wrong in subtle ways. When Boswell finished, he looked between us. "One of you is lying or confused. The question is which one." "Test the recordings," I said. "Cross-reference everything we both said with documented evidence. Marriage license for the venue, case files for work history, school records for dates. The facts will prove who's telling the truth." Boswell agreed. It took 3 days. 3 days of investigation, verification, documentation. In the end, the evidence was clear. I had gotten 92% of factual questions correct. The not me had gotten 68% correct. The errors he made were consistent with someone who'd learned about my life secondhand, studied it, memorized it, but didn't live it. Boswell called us both in again, this time with 2 uniformed officers present. "I don't know what's happening here," he said, "but we have 2 individuals claiming to be Adrian Okoye. One of them is telling the truth. One of them is committing identity fraud. Based on the factual verification, Adrian Okoye," he looked at me, "is the legitimate identity holder. You," he looked at the not me, "need to explain who you actually are and why you're impersonating a police detective." The not me's expression didn't change. Still calm, still confident. "This is a mistake. He's manipulating the evidence. He's been planning this, setting me up to fail." "Then provide documentation of your identity. Driver's license, social security card, birth certificate. Prove you're who you claim to be." The not me reached for his wallet, pulled out my driver's license. But when Boswell examined it under close light, there were subtle flaws. The hologram was slightly wrong. The microprint was blurred. It was an excellent forgery, but not genuine. "This is a fake ID," Boswell said. The officers moved closer. "I'm going to need you to come with us for questioning. Impersonating a law enforcement officer is a serious crime." The not me stood slowly, and then he changed. Not physically, but something shifted in his presence. The confidence drained away, replaced by something colder. "You can't arrest what doesn't legally exist," he said, and his voice had that harmonic distortion again. "I'm not human. I'm not subject to your laws. I exist in the space between identity and manifestation. You can't hold me." Before anyone could react, he walked toward the door. The officers tried to grab him, but their hands passed through like he was made of smoke. He paused in the doorway, looked back at me. "You won this round, but you'll slip again. Everyone does. And when you create another gap, another empty space in your life, I'll be back. Or someone like me will. We're always waiting." Then he was gone. Simply ceased being present. The officers looked at each other in shock. Boswell stared at the empty space where the not me had been. "What the hell just happened?" "He's what I've been trying to tell you about," I said quietly. "An entity that fills empty spaces in people's lives. A doppelganger. Something that exists because I stopped fully living my own life." The room was silent. Then Boswell spoke carefully. "I don't believe in the supernatural, but I just watched someone walk through 2 police officers like they weren't there. So either we all just experienced a mass hallucination, or you're telling the truth about something I don't have a framework to understand." He sat down heavily. "Either way, you're the real Adrian Okoye. Your credentials are reinstated. Your leave is canceled. Welcome back to work." The aftermath took weeks to sort out. The emergency leave request was formally withdrawn. The missing persons report was closed. Simone and I had a long conversation about what she'd experienced. the version of me that had seemed ill and unstable. I wanted to believe you were just stressed, she said, that the divorce was causing you to break down, and if I just supported you through it, we might fix things. But that thing, Adrian, it wasn't you. When I look back now, knowing what I know, it's so obvious. But in the moment, I convinced myself the differences were just you, changing, growing, dealing with trauma. We didn't get back together. Too much damage had been done, too much distance created. But we ended the divorce proceedings on better terms, with understanding instead of bitterness. Thanks for watching till the end. Make sure to subscribe and like to not miss the next story.